Welcome to the Reappearance space. Friend, thank you so much for pressing play and tuning in, and welcome to the season 2 premiere of the URC Space podcast. Welcome to the NashVillage. If you are a repeat offender, I want to thank you so much for hanging on while we were on hiatus. And just in case, my name is Nash at Nash Speaks Live on Instagram, and I am so excited to have you here with me for another episode, another season. God is just so good, and he is so faithful. I'm just going to start this season off by just giving him the praise. I hope you don't mind and make some room for me, because I might shout here today in the studio. This podcast is simply a place where we talk about stuff, and we strive to leave our conversations inspired and considering a perspective on life, which maybe we may not have considered before. And there's always different spaces and places that we unbox, one blank space at a time. So we are just coming off a pretty nice hiatus. Oh my goodness, season 1 ended in May. Hello, September. It seems to be the reoccurring theme that we return on the last weekend of whatever month we're going to return. And we are in a brand new studio. Oh my goodness, God is so good. We have a brand new theme song. And I'm pretty sure you just heard someone breathing on the other end of the microphone a little bit heavy, and it wasn't me. And I'll get into that in a little bit. So let's get caught up here. But before we do, as I mentioned, new studio, new theme song, new look, new everything, new branding. And it would not be possible, one, of course, without Almighty God just having his hand all over what we're doing here. It still blows my mind that people like you all over the world, you carve out time to listen every week to what we are going to discuss. And thank you, NashVillage. Thank you for being just so faithful in listening and contributing to sharing the show. And for those of you who have supported this podcast with financial support, thank you, because a lot of the new furniture that I'm installing here in the studio is made possible from those donations that you've been giving every month. So thank you. And I'm going to do a little behind the scenes tour on my Instagram very soon. We're still getting some things fixed and polished here in the studio. So don't worry, you'll be getting a behind the scenes look to see where all of those funds, what you've been able to buy and purchase. And I'm telling you, every dime that you have contributed, it is being managed with the utmost integrity before the Lord. And I just want to thank you. And for each of you who have left a review on Apple and 5 stars, all that good stuff, I appreciate you so much. That really helps with the visibility of the podcast. And I just can't say thank you enough. So thank you. We're starting off this season with praise to God and gratitude to you. Okay. So yes, we've got this new studio, and let's talk about it for a little bit. I'm calling it the NashVillage Studio, and it's a place where I really just feel so creative. I come in and it just feels like inspiration. It smells like inspiration. Mariah Carey is in here. Hi, Mariah. Mandisa is in here. Hey, Mandisa. And I got a host of other inspirations in here, and I'll show them to you one day on Instagram. But I'm just thankful for a space where really we can just be creative. You know, season 1, I recorded in my brother and sister-in-law's basement, and now we have an actual bona fide studio. And when I first moved in, can you believe this? There was a flood literally within weeks of me moving in. And it was just really inconvenient, because I had all the equipment hooked up and everything was set up, and then I had to take everything out because there was some serious damage and some serious repairs that had to be done. But we got the repairs done and all was good. So got the equipment reinstalled. Everything was back up and running. And then there was some pest control that needed to be handled and dealt with. So had that going on. And it was annoying. Just, what is it? I think Kat Harris said this on her podcast, The Refined Collective. The existence of resistance is evidence that you're doing something powerful. And I was like, oh my goodness, the enemy just does not want me on the microphone. He just does not want me pressing play. Or pressing record here. And so we got past that. And then, as you know, I'm very resilient. I don't give up. I am an overcomer, Mandisa. And I knew that there's got to be a way, Mariah. See what I did there? Gave a nod to them both. But we got through it. And here we are recording live in the studio. And I hope you got a chance to listen to the season 2 trailer last week. You got just a little taste of the new theme song that we've got going on. And that came about like, I was not about changing the theme song. I didn't want to do it. I wasn't for it. And I really liked our first season's theme song. It resonated with you because you would tell me that you liked how it sounded like you were walking into a coffee shop. It had a very jazzy, relaxing feel to it. It complimented my voice. And many of you said so many complimentary things on and on about the theme song. And I was really looking forward to maintaining it for season 2 and even beyond. The producer who I worked with on that particular song, and I went to him, I want to have a theme song that kind of has this feel, has this sound. Is this something that you think that maybe you could do? And he just went to town, and literally, I am still very, very proud of the outcome for the season 1 theme song. But when season 1 was getting ready to go on hiatus, and while I was on hiatus, the same producer called me up, and he said he's at Lazy Boy on the Beat on Instagram. He called me up, and he's based over in the United Kingdom, and he said, "Hey Nash, I have an idea for your season 2 theme song." And I said, "Okay, but I don't think I'm going to be changing my theme song. But thanks, but no thanks." Some time went by. And then he came, back to me again and said, "Nash, I really got an idea for you for this next theme song, for a theme song for your next season. And I want to share it with you." And I said, I really don't want to change the theme song. I really like it. I know my grooves. And I think mainly for me, just from a logistical standpoint, because, with the soundboard and the engineering and all of that good stuff, I didn't want to have to relearn new cues and all of that stuff. And I said, I know the cues for the first theme song. I know, like, this is where it comes in. This is where I come in. This is where it fades in. This is where it fades out. This is where I go out, and etc. And he said, well, I was thinking of maybe modernizing it a little bit and bringing it to a 90s sort of a feel. And then when he said that, my interest was intrigued. Only because I said, well, if it sounds like the 90s, that would be a little bit more of me. And, I want this podcast, we're all about meeting at the intersection of a Black Christian millennial gent. So being a millennial, like the 90s sound is a part of who I am. And so I said, okay, 90s feel. What if I gave you some songs from the 90s, from artists from the 90s that I really liked? Would you be able to kind of listen to them a little bit and then maybe use that as a basis for crafting something? And he said, yeah. He's like, but I need to know, like, if this is something you definitely want to do, because I was so really much on the fence about it. And I said, okay, all right, it's something that I'm interested in considering. Can you give me a sample of something and then let me know? And he sent me the sample bass beat about a week later. And I said, oh my goodness, I want to build on this. And so we began working just nonstop for weeks on end while we were on hiatus, layering and stacking so many different instruments, so many different beats, so many different inflections and flares. And so the real inspiration came from one of the greatest girl groups of all time, TLC, from the 90s. Hey. And them combined with Queen Latifah, they really were like what I wanted this new season to sound like. And then I wanted to also pay tribute to some of my favorite other artists from the 90s. So if you follow me on Instagram, I already posted a collage there, and it shows you all of the artists who did inspire it. But just in case you haven't seen it, the artists that inspired the new sound we have are TLC, Queen Latifah, Stevie Wonder, Will Smith, Drew Hill, Baltimore's own, Da Brat, Missy Elliott, and Missy Elliott's from the DMV as well, from the 7-5. And of course, Songbird Supreme, Mariah Carey. What a mashup, right? And I think that all of their sounds kind of do work with me. And I'm going to be honest. Janet Jackson was also included in some of the inspiration, in the initial inspiration that my producer and I went back and forth with. However, when I discovered that she is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Mariah Carey is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I recanted the Janet Jackson inspiration for this theme song. And you mess up, Nash, it's very petty and it's very unchristlike, but I'm a lamb, so amen. And I'm gonna just leave it like that. So with the new sound also came a new look, and my photographer Ron and I, he and I, we worked together. We had these meetings. What do you want your look to be? What do you want this to be? And I was just very I want something just very simple, a little mysterious, maybe, but something that would be impactful. And I think Ron did such an amazing job curating the new look that we have here for this season. And I look a little bit different, and people are noticing something a little bit different about me. And I want to talk about that because I have been working on myself. And I was speaking with my really good friend Yasmina, and she had said, oh my gosh, I had showed her some of the pictures from the reel. And same with, my best friend TMT and some other families and friends, and they were just like, oh my goodness, what is going on? This is you? And I said, I know, I don't even know. I don't even recognize this man. I don't even know who this man is. And sometimes when you're working on yourself, you are really intentional about it, that you don't even come up for air to see your progress. And it wasn't until those photos that Ron took that I really saw oh my goodness, I have been working on myself and I am moving forward in the direction that I want. And I'm so thankful and I'm so grateful. And if you're tuning in today for the first time here on the podcast, you might not quite understand why I'm pinpointing that. But when I started this show, I was in just I don't want to say I was a hot mess express, but I was recovering from a very traumatic experience. And I lost all my hair. My weight was sort of, I didn't have a weight problem, but I knew that I wasn't being healthy and I didn't have healthy habits. There we go. I didn't have a regular bedtime. I wasn't getting enough water. I wasn't giving myself the physical activity that I know that I needed. I wasn't getting fresh air. I wasn't getting enough sunshine. And so, all of those things combined just lead to not favorable outcomes. So working on myself meant, being involved in a regular workout regimen, which I have been, and having a regular bedtime and getting enough water and staying connected with those who make me happy and who keep me shining and who keep me smiling, listening to podcasts and music. And that is just very inspiring. And having a regularly scheduled time to meet with the Lord and to pray and to hear from him. And as of lately, I really have been focusing on just the art of biblical meditation, thinking on a promise of his word. And, I think it's in Joshua where, he says, this book of the law shall not depart out of your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night. And it's like, oh Lord, I want to think about you during the day and I want to think about you during the night. And this is just so weird. This is kind of going to go into a little bit of what I'm going to segment into next. I've reactivated my online dating account. And so I connected with this one woman and I was telling her what I'm telling you right now. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, I'm just all about biblical meditation. And she had said, oh, are you talking about levitating and stuff? And I said, no. Just thinking on the word of God and just focusing on a promise, having a promise just to chew on and to think about. And I said, we can even go back before we had the word. I look at the life of Abraham, and when God made that promise to Abraham that he was going to be the father of many nations, he said, look up at the stars at night. And I want you to remember what I said, because when you look up at the stars, that's going to be the amount of descendants that shall come from your loins. And now I want you during the daytime to look at the sand and the ground. Again, that's a reminder of the number of descendants that shall come from your loins. And it's just so encouraging that during the day and during the night, God wanted Abraham to be reminded of the promise that he gave him in his word. And that's just something I'm chasing after intentionally. Daily, it's a decision I have to make, but one that I am choosing to really envelop myself in. And I hope that it's something that you would consider as well. I've found it just to really be a great help for me in this particular season of my life, because in the midst of all of the newness and the excitement, I also feel like this has been like one of the greatest seasons of opposition and transition. And if you don't know this, every time you get elevated to a new level, you're going to encounter a new devil. New level, new devil, as Joyce Meyer always says. But we should not get discouraged by that. If anything, it should be a compliment that we're right where we need to be. And like I said, with Kat Harris, the existence of resistance is the evidence that you are doing something powerful. So onwards and forward is where we go and where we should be. And so the hiatus, which is really great, I was able to reconnect with a lot of my friends. I really haven't been able to really see anyone in person just because of where I live and where they live, but we've been doing a lot of virtual things, and reconnecting with them has just been so great. And I've been noticing there has been a common conversation that has been happening amongst many different friends, like who don't like, my one friend lives in Virginia, my one friend lives in Missouri, my one friend lives in Pennsylvania, my one friend lives in Florida, and like all of us are talking about the same thing. And I'm just like, wait, this is weird. Oh my goodness. Okay, maybe God is saying something. Let's talk about this on the podcast. So it seems that the reoccurring thread that I've been noticing, and I just want to kind of chat with you about it just very quickly, is about boundaries and routines. And we're going to double click a little bit more into this season, but I just, full disclosure here, like completely never understood boundaries or routines. I used to make fun of them. I criticized them. I didn't understand. And as my pastor would always say, don't criticize something you don't understand. And well, me and my big black mouth would always criticize stuff that I did not understand. Now that I am on the other side of not criticizing things I don't understand, I have found myself really adopting many of just some of the things that I thought were silly and stupid, like having a regular sleeping schedule and routine, which is something that I'm very active in doing. Phone placement and phone placement in my life, but not just phone placement, phone connectivity. So during the day, probably about 80% of the day, my phone is on D&D. I do set certain individuals are breakthroughs. So like if it is an emergency or if someone really needs to get to me, I think you just heard somebody breathing. We'll get to that in a second. If there is an emergency or someone needs to get to me, they can. But for the most part, my phone is on D&D for a good part of the day. And then in addition to that, when I go to sleep, my phone does not stay in my bedroom. My phone stays outside of my bedroom and it charges somewhere else. And I use an alarm clock to get me up in the morning. An alarm clock and someone else helps me get up in the morning too. I'm getting there. Don't worry. Stay tuned. The power of D&D is something like, I'm just telling you, like it really just helps with all of the pings and all of the ping. I'm not really getting distracted and all of that good stuff. And just meeting with myself has really helped. And I talked about this a little bit last season, and maybe I'll just do an episode and I'll talk you through what a meeting with myself looks like. And maybe it could be a good foundation for you to consider having a meeting with yourself. On the 15th of every month, I sit down and I meet with myself. And I look at so many different areas of my life. I look at my financial areas, my spending, my savings, my giving, etc. I look at the podcast and, how is it coming with the script writing? How is it coming with the marketing? I'm in the process of getting my website developed for the show, getting some additional supporting amenities to go with the show as well. With the book, looking at, what is the progress in the manuscript? We're looking at having it completed. I almost set the date. Oh my goodness. We're looking at having it complete on this particular date so that it can be released on that particular date. Oh goodness gracious. Hopefully I can say, I'm hoping I'm not spilling any beans here, but like looking at that, I do look at my dating life, and my dating life is so hilarious to look back on. I should probably do just an Instagram live on meetings with myself from January to September about my dating life, because I do keep little notes, not about every person that I date, but the ones that kind of stood out, and just how all of them simply crashed and burned and just never worked out. I look at the way in which I communicate with my family and my friends. And sometimes on the 15th of the month is when I'm like, oh my goodness, like I didn't talk to this person this month and this person really means a lot to me. Or I'm noticing like even like full disclosure, my big sister Heather, today is her birthday. Happy birthday, Heather. And I know like just the busyness of my life, like she and, you know, my brother and my sister-in-law down in Acresville, they are people that really mean a lot to me. And I just have slipped in my consistency in communication with them. So I look at stuff like that and I'm like, okay, like, well, did I notice that 2 months ago or was that just in the last month? Oh, I noticed it since the hiatus. Okay. And this is what has changed in my life. And these are the different dynamics now. Okay. How can I still be intentional about including and making sure that those people are, and then even looking at my boundaries, because there are some boundaries that have been implied from others, you know, those who I would like to be in relationship with and communication with, who have elected or chosen that they don't want to be in communication or relationship with me is completely fine. I have to respect their boundaries. But then also looking at the boundaries that I have bestowed on other people and not being afraid to communicate them. One of those boundaries is just essentially like when people contact and communicate with me. I was, you know, in a setting recently where I was giving out my, someone had asked for my cell phone number and I said, oh, okay, yeah, like here's my number. But I just want to put a disclaimer out there for you. I go to bed at 7:30 p.m. because I wake up at 3:30 in the morning. So if you text me after like 7 o'clock, there is a very strong chance that I will not see it until the next day. And I just want to give you a heads up on that. So that's a boundary so that individual knows now that if they try communicating with me after a certain time, that there is a chance they are not going to get me and they won't get me. But just being able to be open in communication with things like that, I think is just so key and so valuable. And even just putting boundaries on like my time with the Lord. There's another girl that I was dating, I guess I should say. There's another girl that I met on the dating scene, and she and I were having a conversation about just being intentional about our time and our quiet time with the Lord. And I said, you know, I borrowed this from Joyce Meyer. I need to run to the throne before I run to the phone. And I try with every intention every day to go to the throne before I go to the phone. Some days I don't get it. And yet there his grace is, even when I don't go to the throne first, his grace is still there because his mercies are new every morning, as it says in Lamentations. So I embrace those new mercies every day and those new graces, but I also try to be very intentional about going to the throne before I go to the phone. And one of the passages that I've just telling you about meditating on the word. One of the ones that I've really been focusing on recently is in Psalms 56 verse 4. And this is the Amplified Classic Edition Bible that says, by the help of God, I will praise his word. On God I lean, rely, and confidently put my trust. I will not fear. What can man who is flesh do to me? And I'm telling you, when we get ourselves positioned into a place where we are intentional about meditating on the word of God and his promises, the things that man try to throw at you, you soon see that it is so much bigger than you, that the attack isn't even about you. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. And you'll find yourself like, oh my goodness, what can man who is a mere mortal do to me? God is the one who is going to keep his hand over me. If he brought me to it, he'll bring me through it. And that is something that I've just been encouraged in, and I've been just loving and enjoying. And like I said, I do get up at 3:30 in the morning because I am in a very, very, very just zone. I'm in a very good zone right now with this book and finishing this manuscript and getting around the round table with the attorneys and the publisher and the editor, you know, and we're getting ready to really get this thing shared with you. And I am just so thankful, not just for the story that you soon will be able to read and hear via audiobook, but I am so thankful for the lessons that I've learned in this story. I'm just ever reminded that God is not through with me, and he's not through with you. we can so easily just look at just the imperfections that we have and the things that are just not right about us, the things that annoy us. Like, oh my goodness, I said that again. Oh my gosh, I messed up again. Like, oh, when am I ever going to get fixed? When am I ever going to get right? And you know what? There he is, still with open arms, unconditional, willing to love us. I was watching a rerun of Touched by an Angel the other day, and I loved this episode. It was talking about marriage. And one of the main characters, played by Delarice Tess, she had said, God gave man the assignment of marriage to know and learn what it means to love someone else unconditionally, so they then would soon see and experience the reality of his unconditional love for them. And that just really just sank in my heart. And I am learning that in a different way without marriage. And I'll give a little teaser about that here soon. But I just thank God for this place that he's brought me to. My life is not where I want it to be, but I am so thankful that it's not where it used to be. I am okay. I am on my way to where he wants me to be. And there is something about being able to have joy in the midst of all circumstances. The craziness, the ridiculousness, and still having peace and still having joy. I've been noticing that there have just been some issues with the grocery stores as of recently. And I do pickup orders still, simply because it's just very easy for me, and it just saves me time from having to go into the store. I really am a shopping adverse kind of a guy, and I guess that makes me like a typical dude, but it's just so much easier. Just open up an app, do it on thing, pick it up, and the grocery store is next to the dry cleaners, so I drop off, pick up, it's just very easy for my flow, especially going to bed at 7:30. I don't have extra time to spare on a weekend to go into a store. But I've been noticing that in the stores, there have been like one store didn't have bread one week, and then another grocery store didn't have avocados, and then the other grocery store didn't have bananas. So like I've been having to go to like 2 to 3 different stores, and my sister Heidi was like, Nash, I think you're just going to have to break down and go into a store. And I'm like, no, I don't want to go into the store. I am going to not go in the store. But even in that, right, we can just get so frustrated. Like, oh my gosh, like, I guess I just need to go in the store. Why don't they just have it? I could fly off the handle. And I'm just like, I'm going to choose joy in this moment, and I'm going to choose peace. And that moment, yes, there are other moments where I'm not choosing joy and I'm not choosing peace, and it gets a little bit hairy and a little bit dicey here and there. But yet that's where his grace ever abounds and keeps abounding. So this season here on the URC space, we are going to be looking at, I mentioned in the trailer, we're going to talk about eating disorders. We're going to talk a little bit about autism, but I'm just going to be flat out honest with you. And I'm going to talk about some of my frustrations as a single man, as a single Christian millennial man, and what the dating scene is like as a single Christian millennial man, and why I am frustrated as a single person. Last season, I talked about why am I so frustrated being a Christian, but now, let me take that back. I'm not frustrated being a single person. I'm very content in my singleness, but there are just some interactions that I've had on the dating scene that just haven't set well with me, particularly coming from females who are believers. And that has just really been so much. Interestingly enough, I was speaking with one of my friends, and while we were on hiatus, I was telling them how I was interested in getting a seahorse as a pet. And they said, but the only thing is like they require this kind of tank, this kind of water. You got to have this kind of things in it. You got to get this, you got to get that. You have this balance, you got to change the water, you got blah, 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 blah. And she just looks at me and she's like, isn't it just easier for you just to get a wife? And I was like, if only it was that easy. Like, I mean, I'm sorry. Am I just supposed to just walk out on the street, put my thumb out on the thing, and just be like, hey, you want to be my wife? I'm looking for a wife because I heard it was easier to find a wife than a seahorse. Like, no. Long story short, I ultimately decided not to get a seahorse because when doing some further research, I saw that the longevity for that much investment for a seahorse lifespan was only about a year's time. And I said, I don't think that's worth for me to just have a seahorse for a year. I would rather have something a little bit more substantial. So yeah, I will talk a little bit more about my dating life, as this season will take us all the way through the beginning of 2022. So we will be in season 2 still in February. So of course, everyone's talking about love and relationships in February. I really want to hound in on vision and boundaries this season, and traveling. Yay! My best friend TMT is going to be coming back with me, and we're going to be talking about traveling. And yes, even in the current world that we're in right now, I know a lot of folks who, listen, y'all are living y'all best lives on Instagram. I see y'all done been to Acapulco, y'all done been to Cancun, Puerto Rico, Cuba. Like, man, y'all are traveling and doing the thing up. And I would love to join you, but there is one little caveat, which I'm going to be sharing with you soon, why I don't think I can fully travel to that extent like how I used to back in the day. And yes, as I said in the season 2 trailer, we will be talking about essential oils. I have spoken with Sierra. We have our date set for recording, and we will have an episode of essential oils because there is a lot I want to talk about when it comes to essential oils. And we're going to end the season in a different place. I'm going to talk about the church and the relationship with the LGBTQIA plus community. Oh yes, we're definitely going to go there this season, and I am not going to be biting my tongue, and I will save my further comments for that time. But we will resume our conversations next week in a desert place. And in a desert place, I'm talking about a place in Southwest United States. The state begins with an A. It's got a city in it that begins with a P, ends with an X, rhymes with Xenix. Well, I don't know if Xenix is a word, but anyway, I want to tell you all about my new Australian best friend. True story. I was getting ready to relocate to Phoenix, Arizona while we were on hiatus, and I prayed about it. There was a very favorable opportunity for me out there, and I was getting ready to just go ahead and do it. And before I pulled the trigger, I sought the Lord, and he redirected me somewhere else. And instead of me going to Phoenix, he brought Phoenix to me, literally. While we were on hiatus, I became a daddy. And I do want to clarify that I became a doggy dad, not a human dad. Not saying there's anything wrong with being a human dad, but Lord Jesus, I don't want folk thinking I have a human child. I do not have a human child. And I almost said yet. Oh my goodness. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I've ever told you my thoughts on having children, but anyway, I think you hear him. Phoenix, do you want to say hi to everyone? You saying hi? He is he literally is just like the best thing that's happened to me while we were on hiatus. Oh, there he is. He's talking now. And he is my 2-year-old Australian cattle dog. He's a blue heeler. And so he is legit my shadow, y'all. Like, I came into the studio to record. I cut on the pre-record music because I have some music that just kind of gets me in the zone, gets my head just to be intentional about what we're going to be sharing. And, I pray, make sure my heart is clear. And I was jamming out, rocking out. And right before I hit the record button, like he knew, he started barking. And I was like, I know he is not barking. When I said, Phoenix, quiet on set. Literally, he got in my lap and was like, you can record the show and I'm just going to sit here in your lap. And so he literally is, I am going to get through this without crying. He is one of the best things that happened to me this year and while we were on hiatus. And I want to dive a little bit deeper into my relationship with Phoenix and why he means so much to me, because I am beginning to see the Lord in a different way, a completely different way. In my care for him, I am seeing the Lord's care for me. And it's just such a great thing I want to share with you. And I think that's where we're going to start off this season next week. But one thing I just want to, before we close out today's episode, I just want to share with you a quote from Danielle K that I read. And it really, I think, just speaks to the testament of where I am in life, and I hope you are. And if you aren't at this place in life, I just want to encourage you with this. If I've learned anything from life, It's that sometimes the darkest times can bring us to the brightest places. I've learned that the most toxic people can teach us the most important lessons, that our most painful struggles can grant us the most necessary growth, and that the most heartbreaking losses of friendship and love can make room for the most wonderful people. I've learned that what seems like a curse in the moment can actually be a blessing, and that what seems like the end of the road is actually just a discovery that we were meant to travel down a different path. I've learned that no matter how difficult things seem, there's always hope. And I've learned that no matter how powerless we feel or how horrible things seem, we can't give up. We have to keep going. Even when it's scary, even when all our strength seems gone, we have to keep picking ourselves back up and moving forward, because whatever we're battling in the moment, it will pass and we will make it through. We've made it this far. We can make it through whatever comes next. My friend, you can and you will make it through whatever comes next. Because with man, it might seem crazy out there, outlandish and impossible, but with God, all things are truly possible. I am so glad to be back with you, and I am so excited for this new season that we get to continue unboxing our lives together, one blank space at a time. You got it. And until we resume our conversations next week, I want you to remember this one thing. You are cute. Stay free, my friend, and Phoenix and I are ready to chat with you next week.